had you on stage quite a few times in different iterations, and so we've had a chance to talk in the past about Mecha, and I love what you're doing there, but just real quick, you want to give us the 30-second who is Rahul, and then we'll do the same for David?
Sure. Yes, I am. I'm Rahul Sood, and I'm a longtime gaming entrepreneur, gaming and entertainment. I spent all of my career in gaming and entertainment. I sold my first company to Hewlett Packard and then moved to Seattle to join Microsoft, where I met David. He'll talk about that. And after I left Microsoft, I started this esports company called Unicorn. Became the largest bookmaker in the world for esports and video games. We built on blockchain starting in 2014. We launched the token in 2015. We went through the bear and bull market. We had an amazing and shitty time. But in the end, we got very fortunate, and we were acquired by one of the largest gambling companies in the world last year, Entain. And then David and I got together to start Irreverent Labs. So,
yeah. So over to you, David.
Hey everyone, I'm David. Is this on? There we go. I've been a software engineer my whole life. Worked about 9 years at Microsoft, and where Rahul and I met in 2010. We started Microsoft's early stage fund back then. I left Microsoft around 2014 to be an early stage investor in tech, like a lot of software engineers did at the time. And then about a year ago, or 2 years ago, I went back to Microsoft and worked actually on Jason's team right there. Hey Jason. Building services to protect the internet from cyber threats. Rahul and I reconnected in October of last year and started Reverend, so it's very nice to be here. Thank you, Jonathan.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. So look, yeah, sorry, we have a little bit of feedback here. Hopefully we can fix that. But so the NFT space is, for lack of a better way to say it, it's crazy, right? We're talking about these, magic images essentially that people attribute all these value creation elements to it. I personally think that's the wrong way to look at it, and it sounds like you do as well. And so real quick, can we just do a level set here in the conversation of like, how do you just think about the NFT space in particular? And then I want to get into kind of what you're all building.
Well, each wave of crypto has had its own influx of capital, which has had its own interest. Oh. Yeah, and so with each wave of capital that's coming into crypto, there's been different interests, right? In the last wave of capital that came into crypto, there was a lot of interest in digital art, and I would say that most of the NFTs that are considered collectible items today, like the early CryptoPunks, etc., were illustrative of that interest. What I think the world has sort of learned is that non-productive assets are generally not great collectible items. And so you're seeing this desire for NFTs to have a purpose, to be able to do interesting things. And a lot of the projects that have been wiped out in the correction that we're in now are projects that essentially don't have that early collectible status, and also are just not productive. You're buying a piece of art, 2D art off a chain that really has no life. It doesn't do anything. And so from our point of view, every piece of art that is released onto the blockchain should sort of end up in a 3D world that can be enjoyed by millions of people around the world and should have a life of its own. And I think that's sort of the transition that we're about to enter.
Yeah, so I guess the best way to think about it is I've sort of been in this play to earn or this gaming space for a while. I was the first investor in Zedrun, which is this horse racing game on blockchain. Pretty cool game. But the idea that we can create a piece of art and put it on the blockchain and then build a community that isn't ephemeral is important. And what I mean by that is, historically, or the way NFTs typically work, is you'll have an artist partner with an engineer. The artist creates some sort of piece of art. The engineer puts it on the blockchain, and then they go out and they build a community, right? In hopes to sell out of their art. And that's what they do. And then unfortunately, the communities are ephemeral and they sort of disappear and they go from one project to another because they honestly don't give a shit about the art. And so what we're doing differently is we're building a game. And we're building a game where every single character in this metaverse that we're creating is an artificially intelligent NPC living on the blockchain as an NFT. It's a hilarious game. And we're breathing life into art. And so for us, the beginning of the life of that art starts at the drop and then goes from there.
And before, I want to dig really deep into that, but before we go there, I want to just talk really quickly about the community building element and kind of this backwards way that unfortunately happens in NFT. It actually, to me, is reminiscent of ICOs in a little bit, right? Where it's like, hey, we're gonna raise a token sale, and then once we have this money, we will have this amazing thing that we'll deliver to you. And it's the same thing that we're seeing a lot in this NFT side, which unfortunately when that happens, you find people that maybe have never built companies before or know what it actually takes to grow it to the next phase. Now, fast forward, or I guess like what we're talking about is people who have built companies before. It doesn't sound like to me that you're building an NFT company. It sounds like you're building a gaming company.
Yeah, like it's exactly right. We're building a Web3 game studio. So we're a native Web3 game. And the way we think about it is customers or purchasers of NFTs or end users should not be the one financing the creation of our company. So when David and I started this thing, we quickly raised $5 million last year. I don't know, I think it was like October. And we had A16Z lead the round. We brought in a few other investors like Mantis and a couple of others. And we have just completely exploded. Our community has grown massively. Our technology is pretty amazing. And A16Z did a review with us about 6 weeks ago with all the general partners, or a bunch of the general partners who we'd never met, and they said, hey, like we don't think we need to wait for your Series A, so we'd like you to raise your Series A whenever you want, and you can continue to focus on your business. So we just closed a round. We raised $40 million a couple of weeks ago, and we're continuing to build. So we're not doing a drop to finance our company. We're building this incredible game and these characters in the game, which are living, breathing works of art that happen to be NFTs.
One thing I'll add to that is, if you look at Web 2, there is a template for what a Web 2 company looks like, right? You've got SaaS as one example. There isn't a template for what a Web 3 business model looks like yet, and that's part of what we are creating. And part of that is building an economic engine where NFT drop revenues is not the mainstay of the revenue of the business. And that's super important. Most of the businesses in Web3 will drop NFTs, and that is the revenue of the business, but it's lumpy, it's not an economic engine. So it's important that I think companies in the space are appreciating that there is going to be a template that emerges. That's not quite there yet.
Well, you're doing a great job of teeing up what our next panel is going to be, because we're going to be talking about Web3 products versus Web2 products. So thanks for that. I want to just take a really quick sidebar, just because you brought it up about the fundraise. And just for the founders in the room, what is it like to raise capital for a Web3 company versus a Web2 company? And that's a congrats that Andreessen's basically like, hey, like we want to do this now. What have you noticed as the difference as you've created companies over the years here?
Well, for me, there is no difference. You build a company, you start by building a really great team. And in fact, if I think about my sort of history of building companies and getting acquired, my first company took 16 years. The second one took about 7 years. And this one, we raised in 7 months. And I guess the real key with this one is David and I both hired people that we've worked with in the past and that we're very familiar with. Him and I are very familiar with each other because we started Microsoft Ventures together. And we have a friendship that goes back a ways. And so we understand how each other works and what makes us tick. And so everybody in our team are people that we've worked with before, whether it's our lead artist or cinematics person or some of the machine learning people or the blockchain developers. We've built this team. And then, so besides a team, you're building a culture where people live and breathe and eat and sleep what you're doing. And then you're building a product that's just like amazingly funny and entertaining. So everybody loves what we're doing. And then on top of that, the community sort of carries us on their back. So like those elements are super important. And the one element that people tend to miss is the community element. The community element is the thing that, when Apple was in dire straits and they were about to go bankrupt, the people that were listening to Steve Jobs talk about the comeback was his community. And Tesla has a community. And a lot of these, very, very sharp, large companies have communities, but most of them don't. You know what I'm saying? So community is really important.
And to dive deep into that, because, you might be a Tesla owner and you see another Tesla owner and you have that community element. But it seems like Web3 has really allowed for, call it the facilitation of managing or operating the community. And I don't mean from like the technology standpoint, it's just more that it's been adopted better. How have you seen that in your community and other communities and, the real, I don't want to say real life, but the real interactions that are taking place as opposed to, theoretical outside?
So what I'm about to say kind of, has to do with a confluence of a number of trends that Web3 exists at, right? And one thing that I'll say is communities want to create, and the only reason for wanting to create within the communities we see is as a source of income. Web3 sort of, I think, in the early days made the cardinal sin of allowing people to stake things as a mechanism to get income. But staking non-productive assets and expecting yield is really the definition of a Ponzi scheme. And there are many different flavors of that. So creating mechanisms for creators to create, but doing so in a way that creates new value, that has real-world value in the real-world market, is the only way to really employ creators in a community. And one of the reasons I think the community, other than the insane art and the sort of ML and all the stuff that we're doing with 3D graphics, is excited about us, is the idea that we are going to enable them to participate in this 3D world in a way that attracts real-world attention and thus real-world dollars.
So, Rahul, you and I have talked about this a lot. We're working on something with brands and NFTs, and one thing that we hear a lot from brands is even before NFT, they're very focused on getting into the metaverse, whatever that is, right? Whether that's being a part of a game or knowing that these assets can live in these games, but they don't necessarily know how to make that happen overall. I think the gaming mechanics obviously it keeps you there, right? Like why gamification, et cetera. So what are you seeing with either brands that you're talking to or organizations you're talking to or how you're thinking about architecting what you're doing overall? How do, call it, average consumers start getting into these experiences and start utilizing this and making it available to them?
So, sort of two questions are almost like, brands and average consumers. When you talk about, average consumers, the one fundamental problem with this Web3 space or crypto space is it's mostly driven by speculators. Like 95% of the people that are in this space are in it for the wrong reasons. They just want to speculate on asset value, and they come and they go, and they're basically degens that basically are speculating on mostly trash, right? I've been through 4 of these bear markets now, and this one is an interesting one because this wave of users that has come into, like this influx is different from the ICO influx. This influx includes brands, it includes celebrities, it includes musicians and artists and all kinds of creators coming with the NFT wave. The issue that I see is like 97% of the stuff out there is going to fail and go to zero. In order to bring real general consumers into the space, you have to get past that point. You have to not encourage the speculation. you don't want to talk about like things like, oh, you buy this NFT, it's going to go up in value, and all this other shit that happens, right? Like Rug Radio to me is like an example of that kind of like that sort of hype machine that is everything wrong with the space almost, right? Because these people are on Twitter talking about which project to buy next because it's going to go up in value. So that's one thing. The second thing I'll say is like you have to make the product really beautifully easy for people to use, for regular people. And the game that we're building is pretty friggin' regular people. It's really funny and it's a different type of entertainment experience. And as a result of that, brands are also approaching us. Like, so I'll just say it's a mecha cockfighting game. We're building a futuristic cockfighting game. That's what we're doing. It's the dumbest idea I've ever had, basically. But David thought it was a good idea, so we started it. And so having somebody as brilliant as David believe in the idea was like a big reason that we went off and did it. And we're sort of creating a world where these characters you'll have an emotional bond with them, because when they hatch from these eggs, they have sort of unique colors, they have their unique AI personalities, and I don't know, he can talk to you about the AI that we're using, and they fight with artificial intelligence. So you're not actually controlling them, you're watching them fight and you're learning about them. It's like a Tamagotchi on crack, and I think that's what kind of makes us unique.
I'm going to add one other thing, that is, what are people interested in the metaverse, right? And the number one thing that comes to mind, and the thing that we believe in, is it has to capture attention. The metaverse will be a digital economy where attention is a currency. And you see this already happening with TikTok and Instagram. Like, Instagram and TikTok are interest graphs of people's attention, essentially. And they're being monetized, by understanding attention. And the advantage of having attention as a unit of economic in TikTok is that it enables culture to progress very fast. Somebody can crack a joke and create a meme on TikTok in the morning, and by afternoon the whole world understands or has a shared understanding of that joke, right? And it enables culture to progress very fast, and that's why it keeps attention. If you create a monolithic game, there is a good chance that a small group of people will have their attention captured in that game, but that game has to do something for them to keep attention for a very long amount of time. In the metaverse, all of the assets in the metaverse, the 3D objects that are floating around this huge world, have to capture attention. And that's sort of the heart of what we're doing. We're using machine learning on 3D graphics to make all of the characters in this world fully animated and sort of fully controllable by players, in that the players are not there grinding on a joystick controlling their characters. They're out there strategizing with their characters. So just imagine that you could watch a show of Game of Thrones, where you as the observer could strategize with your character, your favorite character in Game of Thrones, and alter the outcome of the show just for you. And that's the sort of attention that brands and customers that we talk to and people that we talk to in the community are interested in seeing, something that captures their attention over long periods of time.
Yeah, it's super interesting on just that attention grabbing that you're talking about. So we just have a few more minutes here. I do want to invite people who have a question, just put it in the Telegram, and I'll go ahead and ask here. But we hear a lot when it comes to NFTs about this gaming use case, and we talked about, call it the negative sides of it, and it sounds like what you're doing is actually the better way to do it, obviously. But for those that might be not familiar with even the gaming space, can we just talk for just a quick moment about like skins and like this notion of taking your assets from one place to another, and why that's valuable, and why there's been issues with that, and how Web3 helps with that?
Well, Jonathan, what you're talking about is interoperability, basically. The idea that, Valve actually started with this whole skins thing, where you buy skins for your characters, and they created a marketplace where people could trade those skins if they get bored of the game. That's okay. And then people in the Web3 space say, oh, we're going to create NFTs that you can take from this world to that world, or I'm going to create a sword that you can play in League of Legends and Dota. I mean, let's get real. That's never going to happen. I'm a gamer, and I've been a gamer for 50 years. So since I was born, basically, I'm a long-time gamer, I have no doubt that the interoperability thing between independent studios is a way long-term thing, and it's not the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is ownership, and the Holy Grail is having an emotional attachment with your characters. I play League of Legends almost every couple days. I have no emotional attachment to any of those characters. I could give a shit about Teemo because you could play Teemo or Master Yi or whoever. But if I own, I don't know, Oprah Winfrey or Robocock in Mecha Fight Club, like if I own one of those characters, or I own Tractor Cock, whatever, whoever it is, and it's a unique character with a unique color and a unique personality, and I can basically go to a bar and have a cockfight in the middle of a bar using AR on my phone, and then share those moments online on in Instagram and TikTok and that sort of thing. Or breeding. The breeding game we're creating is ridiculous. I mean, it's hilarious. Like, David can tell you some of the stuff that we're doing, but it's basically everybody's laughing every day working on this game, and those emotional connections are really the Holy Grail. And the fact that I own that character, and if I one day get bored of it, like a pet, which would never happen, but imagine if I did, I could go on a marketplace and sell it to someone else. So to me, that's the Holy Grail. Interoperability between games and skins and stuff, isn't it? That's Web 2. This is Web 3.
All right, well, last question for you all. What does the future look like for NFTs, for gaming, for consumer? Like, what is the next milestone?
In Web 2, you have the luxury of not all the layers of the stack changing at exactly the same time. The cloud changes, but it's not that fast. Protocols change, but not that fast. It's the app layers that are sort of changing super fast. In Web 3, every layer of the stack is changing every day, right? And so it's many different things are happening at the same time, and so it's sort of hard to talk about the future. But one thing that I will say is, if you think back to the city of New York 100 years ago, and you kind of close your eyes and think about it, you'll conjure up pictures of, big construction machinery building these steel buildings and high rises. Essentially the construction of this 3D world, right? A 3D world is going to get created for the metaverse. It's going to be the place where everybody draws their attention towards, and it's inevitable, and it's a thing that more likely is going to be sooner than later. All of the protocols, the transaction speeds and protocols, the security infrastructure that goes into analyzing wallets, everything is in service of this. Without those things happening, you can't get the massive 3D world that everybody is interacting with. And why do I say this? I say this because the world has realized that just throwing art and music and soundtracks and random sort of creations onto the blockchain where they just die is not the way to do it. People also realizing that these characters, the world has an interest in creating avatars of themselves in this world, and the technology for that just does not exist. So my point being that in our minds, a nearer term future of the world is going to be construction machinery that enables people to take the raw ingredients of entertainment, 3D objects, models, 2D skins, etc., and kind of launch them into this 3D infrastructure, into this 3D world to build this virtual world that does not exist yet. And that virtual world is going to be sort of, is going to be interacted by people with different types of modes. Today it's going to be the web browser, tomorrow it's going to be mobile, eventually it's going to be AR, eventually it's going to be VR, and these things will keep evolving, but the creation of the 3D world itself, we think, is imminent.
No, I mean, I think David says it really well. That we really like. I know metaverse is a word that's thrown around a lot, right? But we really believe in this. We fundamentally believe that what we're doing is sort of the next industrial revolution, where as David was describing, New York 100 years ago was built by bricklayers and laborers who didn't get to participate in the real estate boom that happened following it, right? But in the metaverse, the new laborers are artists and creators and musicians and engineers, and they're building it online, and they get to participate with this like concept of ownership that's really unique. And the fact that you can buy a piece of art and whatever that is, a character or some sort of entertainment, and then trade it with someone else, and then the original creator gets to participate in that revenue is really unique. And so I think that there is a very strong future here. But I also think that most of what you see right now will fail, but that's okay, because in the next bull market, the ones that emerge strong will define what the future looks like.
And we've seen that before in different revolutions, I guess, right? The .com, mobile, et cetera, right? So probably going to have a similar result. So with that, Rahul, David, thank you so much for joining us today. They'll be here for a little while, so stick around and ask them some questions throughout at the break at lunch. Please give them a round of applause.